Alrighty, so welcome to the third part of Chapter 13. Yay! Alright, I'm probably the only one celebrating. That's okay. Alright, so we are going to look at the end of the second party system. Alright, so your Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 that comes out of the Compromise of 1850 is very controversial and probably the most controversial part of the Compromise of 1850. It is going to require federal judges in the North to determine the status of these alleged fugitive slaves. Blacks are not allowed a jury trial. They cannot testify on their own behalf. Northerners are going to resent, and pretty immediately, the sight of slave catchers in their states. Abolitionists are going to assist runaways. I'm sure you have heard of the Underground Railroad, so that's one of the ways they will assist them. 1852, Harriet Beecher Stowe, she writes and publishes Uncle Tom's Cabin. It aids opposition to the Fugitive Slave Act. It's going to increase the public outrage that's going on in the North to slavery on moral grounds. It sells millions of copies, and it is still widely read today. It increases the anti-slavery action in Great Britain as well. Northerners are going to call for personal liberty laws to enhance their rights, including the rights of fugitives in free states. You have a court case in Wisconsin, Abelman versus Booth, that the Wisconsin Supreme Court in 1857 is going to say that the Fugitive Slave Act is unconstitutional because it violates the rights of Wisconsin's citizens. So you will start to get some judgments and things on that. All right. So as president, we have a new president at this point. President Pierce. He pursued an expansionist foreign policy. Franklin Pierce. So I went to visit Franklin Pierce's house, and they told me he was known as the most handsome president. So you can make your own judgments. But I don't know that we have photographs of Pierce. Maybe just paintings. Either way, that's what they told me. So the Gadsden Purchase of 1853 is going to lead to the building of a transcontinental railroad. It's going to run from New Orleans to California. It'll support covert military expeditions President Pierce supported covert military expeditions to Cuba, and he is criticized for his aggressive diplomacy. So, an interesting factoid. So, Franklin Pierce was the governor of his state, New Hampshire, I believe. I might have that wrong, but whatever state he's from. But his dad was also governor, and when I visited his home, he told me that his dad probably would have made a better president, but there you go. All right, so you have the Kansas-Nebraska Act. So this is proposed by Stephen Douglas. He wants to open permanent Indian territory by allowing a transcontinental railroad that's going to link Chicago to California. So not only is the transcontinental railroad what we call the big railroad that crosses the country and meets up, it just means it's going across the country. So there'll be several lines that are transcontinental. Let's see. The act is going to repeal, basically, the Missouri Compromise. It formed the Kansas and Nebraska territories and organized the region, on basis of popular sovereignty. And so that's where we're talking. It is going to violate the Missouri Compromise. Because they are gaining the choice to choose as opposed to Missouri Compromise that says above this is free and below this line is not. All right, Northern Whigs and anti-Nebraskan Democrats are going to join the Free Soilers and the Abolitionists in the new Republican Party. Party leadership is staunchly anti-slavery. They argued that slavery degraded manual labor and drove down the wages of free whites. They advocated Republican liberty and individual enterprise. They faced strong competition from the American or Know-Nothing Party. So the Know-Nothing Party, it always makes me laugh. So basically they are anti-immigrant and anti-Catholic, and they would have these secret meetings, and it is basically a secret political party. And if you would ask them about it, they would say they knew nothing about it, and so therefore they are the Know-Nothing Party. So a lot of people are going to migrate to Kansas to settle, and they're going to support both sides of the political debate on whether or not it's going to be slave or free. Missouri residents actually crossed the border to elect a pro-slavery government. Most Kansas residents wanted freedom, though, so they support free soil. And so you're going to get violence that will occur. So basically, between the people who live there and the people who don't live there, who are crossing over to try and influence what's going on, you are going to have violence. So to avenge the sack of Lawrence by a pro-slavery force of 700 strong abolitionists, John Brown is going to lead a free state militia that murders 5 pro-slavery settlers. These attacks started guerrilla war in Kansas that took nearly 200 lives, and so that's why it's called Bleeding Kansas. So you have, like I said, the people that are on one side of the slavery issue and the people on the other, and this is one of these precursors to the Civil War. Okay, so we have the election of 1856. So the Republicans are going to denounce the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and they're going to nominate John Fremont, who is a free soiler. Basically, that means they think the area should be free, no slavery. The American Party is going to split over slavery. So James Buchanan, who is a Democrat and from Pennsylvania, wins a 3-way race. The Democrats are now the only national party. The Republicans are split over sectional issues, and that will not really be resolved until after the Civil War. Up in that right-hand corner, that man is known as Dred Scott. He is a petitioner for freedom. So in 1856, he lived with his master in the Free State of Illinois, in part of the Wisconsin Territory where slavery was prohibited. He is not originally from that area, though, so it's not like they were there and he enslaved the guy. They were from a southern state. So Dred Scott is going to argue that he is free because he's lived in free areas where there is no slavery allowed. 7 of the 9 justices on the Supreme Court declared that Scott was still a slave, but they disagreed on the legal rationale. So your Chief Justice, Roger B. Taney, who is a slave owner from Maryland, argued that since slaves were not citizens, they have no right to sue in federal court, and that Congress could not prevent a person from taking his property into new territory. So that's going to be one of the majority opinions. That the Northwest Ordinance and the Missouri Compromise are not constitutional, and that Congress could not give to territorial governments any powers that it does not possess. Republicans are going to accuse Taney and Buchanan of being part of the slave power conspiracy. Buchanan recommended Kansas be admitted as a slave state and resumed negotiations to buy Cuba. So a lot of turmoil. So you see, this is up till 1858, so we are getting closer and closer to the Civil War, which will occur beginning in 1861. Alrighty, so that is the end of that section, and I will get back to you with the next section in just a bit, or as soon as you hit play on the next one. So I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, and I will see or speak to you soon.